But no,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to mute the tab once it pops up, so just give me a second, otherwise we'll have the echo again. Now we're good.
good morning, everyone. I'd like to open up the meeting, the June 5th, 2026, City of Geneva, Stroll, our IDA meeting. Call this meeting to order. As we normally do, we're gonna like the reading of the mission statement. Is it okay?
Yeah, the camera's not on, I'm not sure why.
Oh, okay. Josh, like to read the,
Sure. The Geneva IDA was created to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in acquiring, constructing, maintaining, equipping, and furnishing certain types of projects and facilities to advance the job opportunities, health, general prosperity, economic welfare, and recreation opportunities of the citizens of the city of Geneva.
thank you, thank you. All right, first thing is we have the agendas in front of us. There's an addition to the agenda under presentation right after Webster Properties, and before new business, we're going to do the pivotal pilot application. Have a discussion about that and setting the public hearing. And then under demolition of the portion of the GDC, Paul's going to take that. He was there. He's is there any other additions or corrections or anything else? So someone wants to add to the agenda? Right, all in favor? Oh, I don't have to. Oh, yeah, there are additions. All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Thank you. We have the May 8th minutes, that were sent to us this week. Anything in there for, that needs to be corrected? All right, make a motion to approve those minutes, please. RJ, thank you, and thank you.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Is, he is not in the call yet, Miles.
He will be here. I talked to him yesterday.
Okay.
He'll just be running late.
And why don't we just jump to the next thing, which is the pivotal pilot application. There was some changes to that application. And
Yeah, so we had the CBA updated as we discussed in the last meeting to include the sales tax and mortgage recording tax exemptions. So those have been updated. That CBA has already been updated on the website as well. So that kind of step to setting the public hearing is good. I believe that Stephen, I believe you all were gonna work on getting those, notice, et cetera, materials ready to go for setting that public hearing.
Yeah, so what we'll have to do is we'll have to notice it, the hearing has to be held on at least 10 days notice. So what we'll do is myself and Amy Abbing from our office will coordinate with you all because sometimes there's a lead time with the paper as well. So we just want to factor that in, and then we'll coordinate with you all if you guys want to do it such that there's going to be a quorum of the board there. We'll just have to properly notice that as an actual board meeting, and then we can conduct the hearing there. But just be on the lookout for further follow-up.
the hearing be at night though, right?
Well, we can schedule, I would say that's probably what we would recommend to do, and it would be at night. So if quorum of you were going to plan on being there, we would just need to also notice it as a board meeting. If only 2 of you are going to be present, then we don't have to, that it would just be the public hearing, which again, the most recent time we did this, I don't believe we had a quorum, so it was just the public hearing. There's not, just reference for folks who maybe haven't been a part of it, you're not gonna be responding to anybody, so, you'll be able to still hear it even if you're not present, and there won't be that engagement anyways, but of course, you're more than welcome to be present if you would like to be.
But the public is invited.
Yes.
And they can't ask questions. Because there has to be a public.
They can pose a question, we cannot respond to it in that moment. So they can pose, it's not a back and forth.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we respond in writing or something like that. Right.
Yeah, what we could do, and we've done this with a number of projects, is obviously gather all of the comments, questions, and myself along with Taylor, we could certainly work to just kind of if we're getting the same types of comments or questions, kind of silo them into topic, and then I could work with Taylor on essentially just providing a a response that could ultimately get published on the website.
Any discussion? Do you have any comment? Again, I was.
No, I
this
think-
week.
No, their response was helpful. Yeah, they
So
corrected
you
it.
think that's all in line for?
Yeah, now that they're showing it's all income regulated, I think it's fine.
Okay,
Mhm.
Josh.
So, yes, what Megan sent out was incredibly helpful, especially the comparison with what your experience is with Ontario County IDA. I
Uh-huh.
think that's incredibly helpful, like that 10% shelter rent calculation.
Mhm.
I just feel like all this, while we're talking about this, I just feel like it just should be noted at this point that we've received some pieces of guidance from the low income housing tax credit authorities in the state of New York through 581A that we're not technically 100% in alignment with that guidance. So it has actually nothing to do with the development or the developer at this point. It's just, I just feel like that should be noted. So that's all.
The guidance of the credits.
The low income housing tax credit
So
authorities.
what
in the state of New
guidance,
York.
what guidance are you referencing? I'm sorry.
So the guidance would be, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I know that you're intimately involved with things of this nature, but the guidance is,
He's referring to this as a part of the application. As I'm sure you've seen.
Oh. Yeah,
So again, that's obviously not.
this
the-
is only
yeah,
how they get points to
Yeah.
advance state housing goals, though.
Yeah,
sure,
They
so,
have to follow that.
right,
No, this is
Mhm.
just, this is a way to
It's just
capture
recommended.
yeah,
extra points. This
Yeah.
is just, it's not a requirement that your pilot is more favorable than a 581A. It's just if it is, they'll
You
get a
get
point
extra
on their
point,
9% application.
Yeah.
That when you see it's a little confusing how it gets published.
Yeah.
okay. So,
But,
so I guess the question, and I'm not being combative, like I just,
no, you don't,
you
yeah.
know, we just want to ask a lot of questions. You can ask Amy. So I guess the question is, from your experience, why would the state require that or desire for it to be higher than 581A? Just for discussion purposes.
I think what the state is looking for is certainty on the tax obligation the project has to carry. So they
Okay.
want it because, fixed expenses, the more you can predict fixed expenses, the more stable affordable housing is. So pilots are favorable because of known schedules. 581As can be, burdensome to the municipality and a pain pain to calculate. So having a pilot it also demonstrates local support, which is a huge part of having a successful application. So from the agency's perspective, 581A is a wonderful tool if you can't get a pilot. But getting a pilot, I think, is favorable for most developers and helps, shows the agency the local support.
Okay,
Mhm,
so just a couple follow-up questions.
mhm.
It was mentioned that they get more points if they follow this, or how, in your experience, how does that work? Or like,
Yeah, you get, I call it a black box of points. They will award points though, I'm sorry, the agency will give the application points if there's a demonstration of local support. And, a pilot agreement is the demonstration of local support.
okay,
So I think that's the simplest way to say it.
okay.
Yeah.
So it's the act of the pilot itself and not necessarily the level of the pilot?
Yeah, no, it's not. I think they're very used to seeing nuanced calculations. You have to remember these guys score applications in New York City, Geneva, Buffalo, they all get scored the same. So they're looking for tax certainty.
Okay,
I don't think they focus as much on the
level.
math behind the tax calculation, just having it documented.
okay. And then I guess the last piece would be, and Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong on this one too. So this is an application for funding.
Yeah,
So are we considering approval of a pilot for the project that still doesn't have funding, I guess, like
Mhm.
structurally?
yeah, yeah, we totally are.
Yeah.
Yes, this pilot will be conditioned on an allocation of 9% tax credits.
yes, yeah,
Okay,
But you have to have your taxes in place before they'll give you an allocation. Again, because they want certainty that the project will succeed. So this is one of the things, it's a threshold, really. If you don't
Okay.
have if you don't have clarity on your taxes, you won't pass your threshold review.
the threshold review. So like when they say draft commitment for a pilot,
Mhm.
does that differ from a formal approval?
Does it differ?
They're basically, when they say a commitment, they're really looking for, in this case, has this board
Hmm.
approved the authorization and execution of a pilot? It's not necessarily, you've closed, paid fees and executed the pilot. They're just looking for, chances are, if this board, after the public hearing were to give approval to the project, they would then take that certified resolution and say, hey, look, I have approval for a pilot. And at times, it can at some point, feel like we're putting the cart before the horse. But as Megan said, this is all part of kind of their application process with the state. And again, yes, they could technically get approvals from us for the pilot, but they won't commence undertaking the project until they get their allocation.
I always say
So-
somebody has to go first. Somebody has to commit to the project first, or else no one does. And I really think that municipalities should carry that responsibility, right? It's gonna impact our community. We commit first, the rest of the commitments come next. So, yeah, for sure.
Every time I was tasked with getting grant money for a big project, they would always give you a list of what gives you more points.
Yeah.
So we would focus hard on getting everything ahead of time.
Mhm.
And otherwise we would
Mhm.
lose the competition.
Right.
My municipality would. Lose. So I've been through this before. You just check the list, do everything. Otherwise you don't get it.
And I'll just say, obviously, we're working on this now, but I know Pivotal is looking to that September timeline, so the speed is certainly a consideration for them as they're going through this.
Would you like a motion then to set the meeting, or we also have?
I think we're good because we had the motion
Yep.
to set.
Yeah,
the
we're all
higher.
set. The
Yeah.
actual, that inducement resolution that we passed a couple meetings ago authorized us to schedule and conduct it. We just need to administratively work with you all to make sure a date and time works.
Sounds good. Thank you.
We have Miles on all time now.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, thanks for
We'll go back. I see Miles, you're on the phone now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks. Thanks for joining us today. Can you bring us up to date with what you're dealing with at the GEDC?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just check off a couple boxes here from a leasing perspective. Actually, we just put a offer out to a potential small tenant the other day, a lease offer. Had a couple good showings to start the spring off with, and just kind of waiting on people's decision for what's next. And from a maintenance perspective, things are flowing pretty well over there. We haven't had any crazy concerns coming into the spring or anything like that. We're full operational, and things are looking good in that perspective. And
Miles,
You know,
could you kind of bring us up to date? I know Bob Ritter is no longer, going there every day and
Yep.
stuff. How
yeah,
you-
Bob retired. Yep.
How you have that covered now?
Oh, no, yeah, we've always had it covered. Yeah, that wasn't an issue at all. So yeah, we're still the same, functionality that we were before when Bob was with us. We just, it's still, Webster Properties doing the management. We've got eyes on the building on a daily basis, and we do our walkthroughs and our, tenant concerns, work orders, whatever we have to handle. And, I'm obviously there as well and on occasion too. So we've got multiple bodies flowing in and out of the building, watching. So it's business as usual for us. So we love, Bob did a great job. It was just, time for him to retire. And so we're happy for him.
So you don't have anyone on site?
Yeah, well, we do, but it's the same way we did it with Bob, where they're, doing daily walkthroughs and things like that. So yeah, we do.
So you
that
have
presence.
a part-time employee dedicated to the building?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep. And we have, we're actually going to be plugging in, that same person's handling pretty much everything. We're going to add a cleaner back to it. Actually, when Mindy was with us, she was handling that as well. So we kind of did it all in-house, from maintenance to cleaning and obviously we have vendors that service the building too for HVAC and roofing and, things that we can't handle in-house. So we do that through vendors.
Hey, and in your report, you have a list of things that staff labor does on a weekly basis, at least once a week, check sprinklers, check pull stations, drain sprinkler hubs.
Absolutely. Yep.
Check cleanliness of the bathrooms. Who actually takes care of do you guys do the shared bathrooms?
Yep. The only one we don't take care of, there's one group that takes care of their side of the building from down near the kitchen there. So they handle those bathrooms, but the rest of the 4 bathrooms in the building are us, or 6, I'm sorry.
All right. And then if you could, I had a question about the LED light installation. Was that on a grant from NYSEG that you all did that?
Yes. Yeah. We've done it in different buildings that we've owned. That same group came down and it worked out great. So now we have, fully upgraded lighting in most of the building, and it's operational on a timer. So it's not just, blaring. It's almost as you walk underneath these units and they turn on and illuminate.
It's just the corridors though, right? Not obviously the whole building.
No, it's corridors, and they're in some of the internal spaces too. Some of the tenant spaces, some of the bathroom areas, other common areas outside of the hallway, and the boiler room we put them into.
Okay. That's all right. How's the activity as far as showing the space?
Yeah, no, we're getting, I don't know, we're averaging probably a couple phone calls a week, and just, after we discuss something with a potential tenant, like, do we have the right space for them? Here's what we have, and what are your needs, and how can we, accommodate? Sometimes it's, the conversation might end there, and other times we try to kind of get everybody through the building, because those showings can lead to other people. We try not to say, oh, we don't have anything. We just kind of show them what's going on, and, here's what would kind of accommodate your needs, and those will lead to other showings, because they know businesses and people that are looking for stuff. So we try to walk as many people as we can through that building.
We're going to have a discussion about reuse systems next. The net space that's the front office space that's on the corner of the building that has the curved.
Yes.
It's about 1,500 square feet, I believe.
Yeah.
And your rent normally for that space that you said was $1,000 a month. Is that correct? 12,000.
Yep, that's what we've gotten in the past. Yep. I think we might have a better space for them coming up. We have some tenant movement within the building. We're just waiting for some non-renewal information to come back, and then I think we'll have an even better spot for them that would, help them realize everything they want to do, from, having that little retail location to, storing stuff properly and working out of that space. So we might have another option for them that would be better.
What would the rent be, or how big is the space and the access to it, and how much would you be?
I don't know. I'm waiting for them to give us their decision. I think it's going to happen soon, and then the space could actually be cut up, but it might even give them access from outside the building through, overhead doors and doors, so they could have their own private kind of entrance, because they want to do some active selling of these, adaptive reuse products that they have. And I think it might be so we're gonna probably hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have that conversation. Like I said, just waiting for the final, hey, we're not leaving, and we're leaving, and here's our timing. We're leaving, whatever that timing might be, then we can coordinate with them for some showings.
Well, they've asked us for some consideration, and that's what we'll discuss here. So knowing kind of what is that space worth?
Yeah, you know what, it's a rather large space, so I don't know how we would, it's raw warehouse space, more than it is the other end, which is kind of like that finished office space that we have. So you might be in the, $4 a foot range, something like that for, the raw stuff. And then just figuring out what type of, square footage they need. Because like I said, there's some areas in there that can be segmented off, like if it's 5,000 square feet or something, I don't know the exact number, but do they need all that, or they just need, 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, or if they need whatever that looks like, then we can kind of
But
jump
it does
off.
have an outside door to the.
Yes.
road. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so I guess, in our conversation, then we'll have to keep it not specific until that's.
Yeah, I would just do that until we get the,
Okay,
hey, we're leaving and here's our date.
all right, any questions? So, Miles?
This was one, where, oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
This was one where we were going to give them a head start, right?
Mhm.
Because of the value that they provide to the community and all that, and it's not for profit, right? So,
Yeah, we'll
Yeah, I-
discuss that in a minute.
yeah, okay,
You're getting ahead of me.
I'm sorry.
Miles, thanks so much for calling in.
Got it.
I know a lot of the initial part of the conversation was related to the on-site staffing as it's moved from the prior staff member to, it sounds like a couple new staff members, primarily part-time.
Yep.
So we just noticed that, historically with any organization, generally speaking, salaries and wages expense and related benefits expense is usually one of the elevated expense items. So when we're looking at that type of analysis in comparison to the GEDC tenant activity reports that we're now consistently receiving, which again, thank you so much for sending those.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
we noticed in the March 2026 piece that it stated at least 6 days a week that the on-site employee would be completing these regular checkup items. So indicating that someone would be on site 6 days a week.
Yep.
In the April 2026 piece, it stated that it was at least once per week. So it seems like there was quite a bit of a drop off in on-site presence, and that could be at this point remediated. But the
I
reason
think
why
that's a typo. Because that
Okay.
doesn't sound right. We would, it's not a once a week thing. Definitely
Okay.
not. No, we're talking,
Yeah.
and as needed, right? If there's an emergent, like we had something, with a water leak the other day and we responded to it, and that way it might have been 7 days a week we were in the building. So yeah, no, we're at minimum, definitely not one day a week. That's
Okay.
not what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, because that
Yeah,
once per
absolutely.
week piece was noted in the April 2026 and May 2026 GEDC tenant activity reports.
Yeah.
So I guess the overarching question would be if there is a change in, to some degree, on-site presence, is there any idea of a cost savings that the board would incur?
Right. I think there should be a little bit of a cost savings because with this current model, we actually have a heightened level of acumen when it comes to construction trades with who we're, kind of managing things with now. So there's we can do more stuff in-house, where before we might have used a few more vendors for different things. So yeah, I think it'll be a significant, savings, probably not the right word, but a significant, the proficiency level of what we're able to actually accomplish with walking through the building when we see something, where sometimes, you just don't have that. You have to call a plumber for a larger job. We might be able to actually handle it more in-house with some of the trades. So it's actually been a good thing, a good flow to the next level with what we can accomplish. So I'm happy about that. And it should realize some savings for the building. I mean, our job is to do things, efficiently, have eyes on things and be on top of what's next. So it'll give us a higher level of that for sure.
So we should see, based
Yeah,
off
I
of
would-
that, maybe
I
some
would-
decrease in subcontractor expense.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And just some brief questions related to the building itself. So fortunately, the reporting has, we're getting more consistent reporting, especially as it relates to rent rolls
Yes.
and those pieces of documentation. So I guess one way we could look at the building is in 3 different categories. So space that is fit for occupancy and occupied, space that
Right.
is fit for occupancy and vacant, and then space that is unfortunately not fit for occupancy.
Right.
In current documentation, I believe we have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the amount of space fit for occupancy and occupied, that would be the rent roll. And
Yes.
then the space fit for occupancy but vacant, that would be the vacancy report.
Yep.
I don't know if we have any sort of documentation noting the amount of space that is not fit for occupancy. And I think as we discuss things, it might be beneficial to have that type of idea of a footprint. Do you
Yeah,
have anything like that?
I'm sure we can put it together. It's not I don't think it's ever been asked of us that way, but we've definitely had, you guys have requested and executed engineers inspections and different reviews of the building. I know for a fact, I've not seen all of those reports in a while, but they've been, concluded and paid for and recognized what was, development opportunity versus currently usable space or what the obstacles were. So that's probably at your fingertips somewhere. In terms of what we can provide, I might have to go back and, measure out some of that space and give you like, hey, it's like, it's 20,000 square feet of, in its current state, unusable,
Mhm.
Okay.
space because of, what needs to be remedied in that space before we can rent it.
Do we think that would be valuable?
Miles, I have a DWG of the building that.
Yes.
We had a architect draw up a couple of years ago. Oh,
Yeah, that would be one of them probably.
Yeah, and it shows that a lot of the, well, first of all, that the spaces are under measured. What you have on your rent roll and what's actually the square foot of the space indicated on the floor plan anyway. Is there's a difference. Also the issue of, and I know your other buildings do not go to the center of the common aisles and the shared spaces. Or is it just inside the walls that you're, I think that's where part of the discrepancy is that, at least in the rental spaces that, like when I've rented spaces, they actually charge you for half the hallway and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you figure the cam and things like that, how it's figured out. But yeah, I don't know that, the perfect answer to that question with regards to that building.
I can send you what I have and maybe you could kind of review that and see, because I believe, as an example, the city DPW is listed as 31,000 feet and it's closer to 35,000 feet.
Right.
According to the floor plan. So there's, and I don't know if they rounded numbers or, I know you're working from existing documents, but that was one of the reasons we had this measured.
Yes.
So let me share that with you, and then you could maybe put that in your next month's report.
Okay, cool.
And what's just a few other questions, I'm sorry, and we can follow up in writing on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the 5/28/2026 owner statement, we noticed that there were prepay items totaling approximately $8,400, and this was shown as negative income, so it would be an expense. We followed up a couple months ago, asking what this was, and it sounded like it would be recategorized. Have we gotten to the ability where we can recategorize these things? Because the issue that we're having is we can't necessarily reconcile the bank statements in accordance with the P&L, given that this is kind of like a bucket of expenses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to drill down on that after, but I mean, they should be categorized. We should be able to, be as transparent as we possibly can and say what they're for and categorize them properly. I'd have to look into that later.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you
shouldn't
so
be
much.
an issue.
And then just two other brief things. Here. So a couple, maybe handful of weeks ago, the profit and loss statements that we're receiving for the building, as you know, the board itself has a fiscal year end of September 30. So we were questioning whether the financials provided for the GEDC follow that same fiscal year end, or if it's the traditional calendar year end of 12/31. And so it sounded like the answer was it follows the IDA's fiscal year end of 9/30. But when we look at the 5/28/2026 P&L, we find that rents received year to date are more closely matching what would a January 1st to December 31st calendar year end would be. And so when we looked at that, we cross-referenced the GEDC tenant activity report, and it states for the 8 months ending May, revenue is up $18,000 compared to the prior period of 208. So 8 months on one document is stating, which would follow the IDA's calendar year of 208 versus the internal reporting of 135. So I think that there's a discrepancy between the documents. And the only reason why I bring this up is because as we look to project the operation of the IDA and the operation of the GEDC, it's helpful to know what the actual fiscal year ends are, because you can look at the board under two different financial methods.
Yeah.
So I know that was a lot of words, and we'll follow up in writing, but I
Yeah,
think
that'd be awesome. Yeah, we'll get you whatever, you need from that question. Yeah.
I have, one more, and we'll follow up with that. I'm sorry for all the questions. On the bank register, it looks like we paid Webster Properties approximately $8,000 for lease renewals, $2,700 for management fees, and $5,200 for hours worked, for a total of approximately $16,000 last month. Is the lease renewal a regular thing? And that might be in our contract, but it just seems like last month was a heavy month of about $500 a day for management of the building. And there might be something that is built into the contract, which is resulting in that. And I'm just looking for clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I would put that in a question, in with those questions you're going to ask for sure, but without, being able to spend the time to look into it, it's usually going to fall wherever those renewals, fall, whether it's heavy in certain months over other months, it's just dependent upon when they fall. There is a small renewal fee that we charge just to process the paperwork and the back and forth with the tenant. It's not like a full, you're charged a leasing fee, usually commensurate with 1 month's rent when we bring in a new tenant. And then there's renewal fees based on their, lease renewal.
Thanks, Miles.
And
Yep.
I'll say too, I know we discussed requesting the lease and lease renewals, et cetera. I made that request. We were supposed to have it. Hannah said she'll get it to us. So that may also help answer some of these questions.
Yeah, that should. Yep. Good point.
The other thing on this report is the fire inspection in the Department of Labor. Do you have that, or is?
Yeah, I don't believe the re-inspection has been completed, right? Miles, you haven't had anybody come through?
Yes, they have not reached back to us yet. I know they were holding off when we had some bereavement going on there with Mindy. So I don't, we haven't been contacted about that. What was the other part you asked about? The Department of Labor. Yes, I've been in touch with them, and I'm gonna forward them, back to you guys to make, for those final decisions, because you're holding the, the purse strings and the decision making on the asbestos project. So.
Okay.
They'll be in contact with you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miles, for attending and giving us these updates. And we'll get you some information for
You got it.
new business. We did mention the GDC space that Reuse Systems is currently using. They have a small space where they just have been storing some stuff, primarily from the Hobart, the building that's been taken down there. They're also having a sale this Saturday. So they're using the hallways, I believe, for these sales that come in.
Yep.
But a new space would be good. Now, they do have a grant that is not 100%, but likely.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and that timeframe is within the next
Yeah, so we're still operating off of a potential July 1 start date for that. The EPA has all of the documentation that's been requested. Everything's been resubmitted. The initial review, they said it looked good, but obviously it has to go through 12 people before we get the final approval on that. But so far, so good. I would say that has been a part of their expenses since the original application, their space. So I don't foresee that being a challenge that they have. So I think that part is likely to be fine.
I mean, the one thing that there's a couple things that they needed this space quickly and because they have sold some stuff, so they do have a little bit of cash.
Yeah.
But not a lot until this grant comes through. That grant's sizable, over
Yes.
3 years. It's not a insignificant amount. But one of the things we discussed as executive committee was to just defer payment of the rent until they receive the grant, not necessarily give them the space, but just defer it to a month, and maybe set a time limit of 6 months, assuming that by then it certainly would close for them. The second one, this issue of Miles showing them another space that's less by, they wanted this front corner space, which is about a premium of space in the building as possible, which but because of visibility right on Genesee Street, stuff like that, but that is $1,000 space. So the second part of the ask was, could we subsidize a little bit of it, since it's not just a nonprofit, but one that has a great mission statement of not putting things in landfills and reusing and selling them. I think they're just concerned about their operating expenses, but this other space would apparently is going to be vacant soon, might be a better choice, and it might also be, they don't need it's big pieces of stuff that they're just there, and I don't know if with these sales, they just open the doors and let them in, and people, they put prices on things, and it's so I don't know that we have to do anything at this point other than until this space thing is resolved. But it sounds like it would be less than $1,000 a month from what he's saying.
Yeah,
Although particularly portion it down.
exactly, yeah.
I mean, I think that space right now that you highlighted.
Yeah.
Is getting $900 a month. So,
Yeah.
It's pretty close to the same thing. But in general, I mean, we can help them out by deferring it, deferring payment until they close, till they get their grant. And it's a 3-year grant, right?
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
proportioned.
Yeah. So, and I'll say again, their sales and the cash that they have now, it should still be a good indicator for what they're gonna be able to afford, because it's a reimbursement grant. So they're gonna need to be able to pay it and then get reimbursed for it anyways.
Right.
So while, yes, it is a substantial amount of funding, they still have to figure out the front end of that. So
Mhm.
I think their assessment of what they can afford now is probably close to indicative of what they're gonna be able to do. So if they were comfortable with 1,000 or 8, whatever it is, I think that would be consistent throughout the course of the grant.
Any inclination to give them a break on the space?
Yes.
You mentioned this before, that you thought that their mission statement was admirable and something that we could support if we could.
Thank you.
So what's the organization? I'm sorry, who are we talking about? And what is their mission?
Reuse Geneva is, they take building materials primarily, some taken, like they were able to get into the science building in Hobart before that was taken down.
Mhm.
Took out some furniture and some doors and things like that.
Okay,
Shelving, lots of nice wood.
Yeah,
got it.
and my company's been donating stuff to them that's obsolete parts for us, some
Mhm.
material,
Mhm.
panels and some materials that we have that we're not using. And they're collecting things like that, people getting in things that they're no longer using. Mostly building materials. And then they have these pop-up sales. It's not like a store at this point.
Yeah.
They might be looking for that eventually, but it's like Saturday, it's the
Yeah.
4-hour sale, and it's a tag sale, I believe. They put numbers on it. And it's not like an auction or anything
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
no, and there are also other components that they will do, at least under this grant that, you know, we jointly applied for, such as fix it clinics. Folks can come in and,
Oh, cool.
yeah, and, you know, some different educational pieces on,
Got it, okay.
you know, deferring waste from the landfill, et cetera. So there are a couple other pieces that would be new, and would also benefit, I would say, from a space that's not just a storage room.
Yeah,
But, you know, obviously.
yeah,
So we'll just, I'll let, I guess Naomi know that we had the discussion.
Once we solidify the space, we can have a more formal discussion on that decision.
I'll write that. Okay. Okay, next thing is the review of, the demolition of the review of the RFP demolitions. Lowell sent him along to this, last week or
Thank you, Lowell.
whatever it was.
I met with Sam DeFrank from the Buffalo firm. I invited that firm and Bronze did not show up. I was surprised. They said that they would be there. Had to go ahead. The firemen were great. I saw them in operation. They have two trucks because one truck watches over the other truck. It's kind of interesting. With several guys, took a lift up into a second level and climbed my way through the younger guys in the group and got into these rooms, second and third floor. The floors are really solid, lots of concrete, but the damage was so extensive that I can now see why it was condemned and deemed inaccessible and unsafe. And matter of fact, as we walked through, Sam said that really I would not allow my guys in here to do the friable asbestos search and removal, identification and removal. Because we thought that if you could do that, the cost to demolish was going to go down, like from $50 a ton to $150 to $200 a ton if you have friables in it. But he's saying that it's about the only way we can do this, and that then
That has to be taken down with asbestos in it.
yeah,
okay.
yeah, because you just can't get in to do the manpower to identify it, pull it out. You know, it is manpower.
Mhm.
And they don't, he just didn't want his people in there. I can understand that. I felt kind of weird being in there, but stepping in 6 inches of water a couple of times. So anyway, then we can get back into the building and we looked at common walls. That was a big conversation. When I looked at it, asbestos on the pipe wrap, you know, that first stage that we were trying to get, a lot of it is along the common walls. There's so much utilities on the common walls, and Sam is convinced that it would be difficult to pull down the structure we want to demolish without demolishing or harming that common wall. I said, no, in my head, I'm thinking giant chainsaw can cut so you can pull things away. But when you do that, the structure of that common wall, it could be severely weakened, it could fall. So I was walking around and I could see some structural members, some columns that were they're web-shaped beams that are made into columns that were already there on our side of the common wall. If we could get, he said it too, if we could get a structural engineer to design additions to the common walls, preserve them while you're doing demolition, that's probably the best way.
So you don't have to move the mechanical.
Yeah, he said initially, fellas, we should take this wall down. You should have a mechanical contractor ready to move all your utilities. You should have an electrician ready to move the power.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and build a new wall.
Yeah.
Right? So you take out the common wall, you take, the whole corridor is gone now. And build a new wall. He said I could operate that way. He said, geez. So I think we got to preserve this common wall somehow. And I would suggest, and this is just from, I'm a civil engineer. I did some structural design, but limited. I would have a structural engineer look at it with me and just say, what can we do to preserve the purlins in another column or two and somehow support the common wall so it stays up when we pull everything out. I was thinking too of one option was to take out the friable asbestos and then just fence the whole thing and let it self-demolish. And save a couple $100,000. But I don't know. I don't think we can do that. The building's not, I thought maybe we could preserve it, support it. No. Yeah. It's really bad. So I think if it was my money, my property, I would probably hire a structural engineer to come in with some drawings. Simple, straightforward stuff, a little over designed to support that wall. And then I talk again with Sam DeFranks to see if he could then do what he has to do.
You're talking primarily the north wall. That's on
Yeah.
the new part of the building.
Yeah.
Can I get that? So, because when I did my scoring sheet, I had a really hard time scoring these because the scopes varied dramatically.
Yeah.
Right, and so ACP Buffalo is who you met with?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Because their scope assumed demo with ACM in place. But then you look at LCPs, which they were expensive, but they assumed a shoring design, a structural shoring design. They had, I think Jensen was the structural engineer they had in their scope. Full abatement before demo. So like you look at that cost, that has a whole scope of work in it that ACP doesn't have. So I guess I want to understand why we're only inviting certain
Well,
contractors to come back and look at it, or do we need to level set a bid
it was the
so it's
the
comprehensive?
RFP was so broad. It was good for general demolition. And
Yeah.
it put the load on these guys to do their own
Well,
preliminary design if they wanted to take it that far.
I know, but it says, actually, the RFP says, assume demolition, assume structural if you need, assume abatement if needed. So like the RFP was super broad.
Right.
But I think it resulted in people pricing whatever scope they thought.
Right.
But now we're trying to evaluate these scopes and I'm just having a hard time finding out who is the most comprehensive and cost effective.
Yeah.
Based on what we have right now. So that's,
Yeah, we kind of narrowed it down to
yeah,
people like Bronze.
Uh-huh.
They did some detail. They even did a little drawing and like their approach. I
yeah.
talked to the Department of Public Works chief who said,
Uh-huh.
you can't take down the salt storage building. If you take it down, build me a new one. It was a little blunt on
Okay,
that,
yeah.
but
Which one? I can't remember
Yeah,
one of them.
yeah, so everything seemed to be additive after this walkthrough.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't have time to look at the potential to preserve the common walls.
Mhm.
And then we did on that day last week.
And the preliminary walkthrough, there was 20 contractors
Yeah.
there and access to the space wasn't available. We went into a lower level, but some of them didn't. We didn't
Okay.
go into inside the building. I think 3 or 4 of them went inside the building.
Yeah. I just know we're so cost sensitive.
I think one of the potential next steps is perhaps identifying a structural engineer, getting that additional information, and then reissuing the RFP with that additional information. I think we would have to, Stephen, I'll also look to you as far as kind of procurement stuff. If we get this structural engineer and we have more information, is it possible that we can just send that to the folks that responded to the original RFP, or would we have to do a completely new
Right.
process?
Sorry, no, you wouldn't have to start over. And again, I'd have to double check your procurement policy, but I
Yeah.
believe you guys have exceptions in there for professional services and so forth that require expertise. So yeah, I wouldn't say you'd have to redo the process.
So and to that point, and I can share with you the procurement policy that we have, Stephen, so you can double check me. But I think for purposes of the structural engineer, I don't believe we need to do a full RFP. I think we can go get 2 quotes.
Yeah.
And based off of those 2 quotes, we can select one. So it doesn't have to be this as long of a process as what this has been. And then again, with that information, we could share that with all of the folks who bid on this. And allow them to update their proposals accordingly.
Mhm.
And then we try to, it's closer to
Yeah,
apples to
yeah.
apples. It's still probably
It's
gonna
not gonna
be
be perfect. but-
difficult, but that's one proposed path forward.
Sure.
Yeah, typically in these things in municipal bid, you usually identify the apparent low bidder and then have him come in and you check everything. If he's got his insurance and he can do it in accordance with the time frame, everything. And if he's got experience, and I call it references, I call these guys references. And not all of them.
Mhm.
We kind of shortlisted to 2. And because both are known, the Buffalo firm knew me from the work I did with them when I was in Buffalo.
Mhm.
And Bronze, I like them and their approach.
Engaged.
So we picked the 2 of those. But there isn't, yeah, you're right, there is someone else that was expensive but thorough and everything.
Yeah.
I discounted them because they were so expensive.
Yeah.
So it sort of pushed us out.
Yeah.
It's hard to not pick the low bidder when you're a
So
municipality.
what's our budget? Like, what do we gotta deal with? Because they can give us anything. If we can't do it, then we're just wasting time.
Yeah, so I think we've discussed this a couple times and I believe our best path forward is to look at getting a loan from the LDC, from the revolving loan fund.
We talked to Craig.
To cover. No, but I have had discussions, like Amy and I have discussed this, obviously Amy in our currently is the executive director of the LDC. And they've got the revolving loan fund committee kind of back up and activated and running, so we could go through the formal channels, of course. But I think,
When does that close? When does the whole market
It-
close?
It doesn't go through the.
Yeah, it's a
totally
separate, we have
funding
different
stream.
funding for that,
It's already
yeah.
closed.
It's a different-
Yeah,
they have-
yeah, we've got separate funding for revolving loan fund, and there's enough to cover what we would need.
I think the big piece on this is it's not, if you can do it.
Yeah, we have to do it.
It has to be done, and
Yeah.
we're kind of on borrowed time at this point
Mm-hmm.
because it should have been done last year. But it couldn't have been, and now we're into this year and discussions continue on the safety of this building needing to come down.
This is the part that we had 300,000 away
Yes,
from the
from
city
the-
already.
We already had.
Yeah, so that's kind of the where we're at, and then we're aware it's gonna be, the IDA is gonna need to contribute 300,000 plus,
Right.
like that's something that is apparent. I think and I haven't talked about this with Adam yet, but I think the structural engineer piece will be able to cover and move that forward with
Yeah.
what we've got as far as the IDA goes.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, again, if we went down this path of just providing that information and seeing how that affected the bid numbers, I agree with you. Ultimately, the responsible low bidder is the path forward. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I do
We had a
think.
lot of adders and.
No, I just
Yeah,
didn't want
yeah.
to sign a contract and they
That's
get
the
a
challenge.
$200,000 change.
That's the challenge. It's not an apparent low bid.
My first review, his potential, he says, I bid 800 tons. I said, what if it's 3 times
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
And it's gonna be another $300,000 and we
Yeah.
double. So that part I didn't like. And
Yeah.
I talked to him about it. I said, I need that number.
Yeah.
And
That's what makes
he said, stick with it.
Yeah.
That's what they do to make it attractive. It's
Right.
Like, oh, this
Which-
is blowing them out of the water.
Will say the higher cost, and the higher cost bid, those individuals have reached out a couple of times.
Yeah.
And also had called at the time of submission and said, I know it probably comes in high, but I don't like surprises. I don't like change orders. I don't like any of that. So we try to, kind of prepare for those ahead of time.
Information.
So that's basic. What I'm getting at is that is why I think number one,
We only got
fairness and
3 bids, right?
4. We ended up with the 4, yes,
4
yeah.
responses, so.
Yes,
we should
4
get-
responses, so those 4 folks should get
like,
the additional information.
we should get this engineer report done, send it to those 4.
Yeah,
And those have them
Nice.
update their bid and
yeah,
and make it a solid bid, not a contingency bid.
And who knows, maybe some of them won't be interested in doing so, and then we'll naturally, align with where.
Okay,
kind of
well,
we're
we
headed.
should go ahead and get, I think
Okay.
CNH, who did the original evaluation 2 years ago, should be included on that list. They're familiar with the building.
So we can
CNS.
reach out to them. I don't know, yeah. Does anybody have knowledge of another? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
So-
there's a company called Bison
Yeah.
Engineering. They're good. They're
Yeah.
small.
Taylor,
They're
we have
candidate.
5 structural engineers we typically use. We can just reach out and see if we get it first for the lowest price.
Okay.
Pretty easy.
So we should.
Move that
do
forward.
this
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, and again, I'll make sure, I'll send the procurement policy to Stephen again to double check me, but I believe as the executive director, I just have to write a note kind of justifying the emergency purchase and why and I also don't know what the cost is gonna come in at, because we also have a threshold for whether or not
It's between, my guess, based off of working with a structural engineer on another building right now. I just said to Adam, probably about 5 to 7 grand.
Yeah, in which case we were actually, I think, below the threshold to need to do that full RFP process anyways, but either way, I think we've got those exceptions, so sounds good.
All right,
Just one question. I know it sounds like we're gonna have to work with the LDC and it sounds like that's still like in the works.
You have to apply to the LDC.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a general loan application,
Okay,
but the loan applications aren't available quite yet
Yeah.
because the committee is coming together again.
okay. That's helpful information because just from a financial standpoint, I think it would be beneficial. And I know it's a moving target, right? So we don't know what the true cost is gonna be, what the IDA has to come in at. That's a full moving target. But as it relates to the debt service on this potential note with the LDC,
Yeah, what is the interest rate on, how's
So-
the term?
It depends on the project and what the terms can be. It's low interest, usually
Yeah.
under 8. I was gonna say it's under 3% usually.
so in your experience, what is the typical amortization?
It depends on the loan. It depends on the value of the loan. It's all within.
Okay, so we're kind of moving, and again, like, of course, that's an application process, but we have a couple moving targets. We don't know how much this is actually gonna cost. We don't know what amortizations, and it sounds like it's gonna be a low interest rate, so that's beneficial.
Yeah.
But in any case, this is gonna create or has the potential to create a level of debt service, which I am concerned about the board being able to afford. And I think that definitely needs to be said. Because I don't know, right now we have a mortgage on the building and I think the current balance is around 360,000. That's one note, and now we are potentially going to acquire another promissory note, which is gonna have terms tied to it. That's concerning from a solvency standpoint.
yeah, but what choices? What's that?
And I think, there's value in stating the problem, but then also where do we,
Right.
what are the solutions we are
Right, so
identifying?
that's the next thing. It's like,
Yeah.
what is the next step for us? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, when you see that we have to potentially acquire debt, that's debt service. How long can we go on that path? And I know that that's not obviously a solution. It's stating the problem.
We can't, okay.
I think we have to raise the rent to city.
Maybe they'll take that 300,000 for the rent.
All right, well,
Yeah.
we are running over here. So you have your marching
Yeah.
orders on that.
Yeah.
That's great. Reports, city council. Chris isn't here. I don't know if there's anything, John, do you want to say anything about, or you're not prepared?
I'm prepared. I can see. Well, the city council, John, anything? What do you want to talk about?
No, we normally have, Chris makes statements, usually the same statements. Every month about just what's up with city council and not, then Amy will fill in a little bit of it.
What's up with city council as regards to this
Yes,
conversation?
Well.
in regard to the IDA,
Yeah, I guess.
relevant economic development.
Well, Chris is on record as saying he doesn't know why the city would pay to demolish in any way, shape or form, demolish a building that the city doesn't own. That's his fundamental point of view. He didn't ask me to say that this morning, but he's on record of saying that. He says it
Sure.
every time you talk to
All right,
Chris.
so that's consistent. That's great.
That there is a consistency there.
It's a bit of a record.
It takes him much longer to say it though.
That was very good.
Right,
Thank you,
Chris,
John.
Chris Kent spoke up. I have to say, I'd like to say that I'm not here really on behalf of Chris. It's just a coincidence that he's not here. And I am. I have a couple of questions for the board, if you don't mind, in a minute, but back to Chris, in the city, you're right, Amy and Taylor probably would be in a better position to talk about any such thing as such as funding. If it comes to that, and I appreciate your commentary, Josh, because you're between a rock and a hard place, I feel.
Absolutely.
I personally don't have any solutions up my sleeve here. I didn't know that there was a possibility you could borrow money from the LDC. Low interest notwithstanding, it's a big nut, and you're right, still don't really know what that nut is, not really. So it's really kind of hard to plan this. I'm not gonna try to help you solve that, unless you ask me to try to help. Can I change the subject just for a minute, Lowell, please?
Please.
Lowell, I appreciate your commentary, because that was gonna be one of my concerns that I wanted to bring up about the actual true nature of the condition of these things, and I would trust your judgment any day of the week if you said it's really beyond the pale.
It's rough.
But I am concerned a little bit, because this is my thing, about any records that might have historic nature to them or not, or have any value to them or not. Does anybody here know really what we're talking about here? Or does anybody, do we know? I mean, do we know somebody are we gonna be doing anything about that
So
in a
we
nutshell?
attempted to go in and look into the records.
Okay.
It is not safe for anyone to do that because of the mold, asbestos, everything. You can't get into those boxes without being
I
ventilated
volunteer, by the way. I couldn't
ventilated
care less.
and all of that. Well, I think that's the piece, and I think, well,
We
you
would care.
probably saw
We would
it.
do in there.
I know Nicole had gone in at one point or twice
Okay.
to do that. And it's been determined that we can't get in there to either do that. It's unsafe to put anyone there.
Okay, well. I won't challenge that right now, but,
There's file cabinets along the walls and there's paper on the floor everywhere.
I think I've
There's
seen,
animals in filing cabinets.
I think I've seen some photographs.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a
Can
bigger
save.
case of.
No.
Nothing in there looks salvageable.
Well, in talking with some records preservation people, they don't want to bring that into any other records because
Right.
it'll contaminate all the other records.
Well, I thank you for the insight there. For the record also, I probably will talk to Chris though, because we've had this kind of chat, and he couldn't be here today. If that's all right with you.
Oh, sure.
I'll kind of be a very good liaison. Okay, that's it.
Hi,
Thank you.
Ryan? How you doing today?
Good. So I've been here a lot this week.
Great.
Monday,
I spent the night Monday, came in early Monday. No, I had the county presentation to the mayor's, whatever, they had hacked me with downtown revitalization and economic development. That was Monday evening. Basically just gave an overview of what the county does in the economic development, the IPA, the EDC, my department. And the backdrop of it was my annual report that I gave the board of supervisors, and I think you have it electronically if you guys want to look at it.
I can check that.
Other than that, we're incredibly busy.
Good.
All good stuff.
I'd like to keep meeting moving here. I'd like to have a motion for an executive session to discuss the financial history of a particular corporation and matters related to the potential enforcement of or termination of an agreement, including receipt of a legal advice from counsel. So, Miles, we're gonna ask you to step off the call, please.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. I'd like a motion, or that's the motion. I'd like, the motion second. There you go, Josh. All right, I'm gonna go into executive session.
Yeah.
Say all those in
Yeah.
favor.
I'm gonna run out of
Say all those in favor.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, okay.
I'm gonna cut the Zoom and then set it back up, Stephen, for you to hop back on.
Okay, yeah, and just for everybody's information, I have to top it.